Hello, folks. Welcome to Education Matters. This week we have the same guest we had last week, and we're going to just do a continuation of, the information we're bringing to you about, what's happening in the schools a little bit. Some information maybe about Southside, the class sizes, and different things like that, and about the health book. If you remember last week when we left off, Patrice Benard was quite animated about what she was going to do about getting information on that health book. So, welcome.
Hi.
Victoria and Patrice for number 2.
Round two.
Round 2. And Patrice, do you want to just start with the health book? Did you get the health book?
I did not get the health book.
Okay.
I talked to my daughter, and she said, Mom, those books we never even use. We used them the first week of school to get definitions, and there they sit in the classroom. They're not used. The teacher is giving them worksheets. So I reviewed her health worksheets this week, and they are discussing the dangers of tobacco and alcohol. And my daughter would like to look at me, and she keeps reminding me of how I am killing myself with tobacco. And I said, hey, I'm smoking outside. I'm working on it. But this is another thing, they bring up these issues. The kids come home, they confront their parents. Thank you very much, Manchester School District. I know that smoking can kill me. I don't need my 15-year-old worried that I am going to die an early death. It's not happening. But this is the first chapter. The last chapter, I looked at the health book and what she plans on covering. It's the last chapter where we get into families and sexuality. That will be such a joy to review with the teacher. So, no, the health book is at school. We have not had open house night, so I haven't met the teacher yet. Apparently, I met her a few years back when my oldest son was there, and he had health. I don't remember it. That was a long time ago. Got a few more gray hairs. So
things have changed.
So yes, so I did insist that my daughter bring home her health notebook every Friday so that I can review it over the weekend.
Great. Now, Victoria, your children will be taking health in some way, shape, or form.
They do. They take it once a week. And it's the same for the elementary school. Toward the end of the year, you really have to be in contact with the health teacher to see what they're teaching, because they do start to get into inappropriate touching. And it's not always done in a way that parents might want. We had an issue last year, as you remember.
Right.
There was a video that was shown, and it wasn't presented in a way that I would have chosen to teach my child. And it was actually kind of scary to him, because they used a situation where an uncle was hanging out with the nephew, and they were looking at baseball cards, and it was all very innocent, and then it wasn't. And there was a conversation that ensued, and it was very scary to some of the kids. They've since, we went to the school board, and they've since pulled that video, and they're not showing videos at all this year without letting people know ahead of time. They're going to be following. It evidently was a policy, but it wasn't being followed. So they're going to be following that policy. But even at the younger levels, they do get into the inappropriate touching and what to do. And it's just something that parents need to stay in touch with their health teachers about, so that they can begin the conversation at home, prepare them for the conversation that's going to happen in health class, because it can be very upsetting to some kids. It's very sensitive material. And then follow up with a conversation afterward.
Right.
But that does happen about May-ish, June-ish.
Right.
Up until that time,
And
I think everything in health class is pretty benign.
And I
It's
think
fire safety and things like that.
Fifth graders, as far as I know, still have the separate boys, separate girls, have a little video about your body parts are changing and puberty and whatnot. And then, as far as I know, that video is still being shown. It was at Green Acres when my son was there.
In fifth grade,
But the sexes were separated, which was nice.
in fifth grade, it isn't so much. I only know this because a friend of mine had a daughter in fifth grade last year who came home a little horrified about things that she learned about the boys' body parts. So they're not just learning about how their bodies are going to change, they're learning about the boys and what happens with their body parts. And
At what grade?
fifth grade.
Fifth grade.
And she was a little stunned and
10 years old.
confused
10 years
and
old,
upset, because they went into detail about certain things that she wasn't ready to have the conversation
But see,
about.
this could all be solved if you just have enough children so they have some of each. They all learn these things in a family. There is no boy that has a sister that doesn't know about what happens to a girl. And once a month, they all know, leave her alone, it's that time of the month. Big families, it tends to just take care of itself. You learn all these things. but now we're in a different day and age where we're not having large families. Mine at 4 children, it seems to be a larger family nowadays. You've got 2. You've got, hey, statistically, you're like average.
And I think when it happens that way, when you're living it and you start to understand these things, or, it's different than being unaware, being in a classroom and have a teacher start to explain these things to you that can be very awkward and uncomfortable. And then you go home with the questions for the parents. So it's just that parents need to be aware, and they need to be in touch with their health teachers, and they need to know when these conversations are happening so they can initiate them with their children before it happens in class. Also, they can review the material and say, hey,
Right.
this is okay, but I'm not so sure about this, so maybe I'll have them sit out that class. Because as a parent, you can have your child sit out that class as long as you cover the material with them. It's okay to do.
Oh, good.
Parents are still the primary educators of their children, and their rights are still recognized in this state. So don't be afraid to say no to something.
Have they built the transgender bathrooms yet?
Honey, we can't even get walls in Beach Street. Never mind, never mind transgender bathrooms.
Well, I just know some other schools in other parts of the country have introduced the transgender bathroom.
Yeah.
Well, we're not
And
Nashua.
Or
It was
not
Maine.
even a bathroom of their
It was
own,
Maine.
but
Right.
integrate.
They let the girls the boys who decide to be girls for the day go to the
Girls' bathroom.
If I was a little girl, there would be some issues.
We have, and I don't think this is an issue in my kids' class, but they do have special bathrooms for kids that can't be with the general population for behavioral reasons. So they'll either use the nurse's bathroom, or they have a para that takes them to what would be used as the public restroom during events and things. So I think that's how they would sort. But that doesn't seem to be an issue here,
Yeah.
luckily. But if they follow this,
No, that's not it.
the healthcare that
The new standards.
that's coming down as a federalized healthcare, it's very gender neutral. It tries to persuade children that they only feel or act certain ways based on people around them telling them to behave that way. I have 2 boys. I'm sorry. No, they were never. They never gravitated toward playing with dolls. They picked up sticks and they used them as weapons immediately. And no one told them to. No one made them do that. No one said this is what boys do. In fact, with my youngest, as a new mom, I thought, put down the stick. It's dangerous. Then by the second one, you're like, just don't hurt anybody.
Don't poke each other's eyes out. Yeah,
You're good.
yeah.
Just,
No hitting above the neck.
so these aren't things that we instill in them because we think they behave this way because of who they are. Boys behave. If you just watch, I used to look at parents in the grocery store, and I used to say, you can tell you have girls. Your hair is done. Your makeup is done. The girls are sitting. They're playing with their dolls. My boys are hanging off of things, They're on the shopping carts, building things with soup cans and hanging off the side. And I'm disheveled because they don't stop moving. And they're just made differently. And thank God we are made differently.
Yes.
How
Let's celebrate
boring
those
would it be?
differences.
Right.
I like being different. Thank you very much.
So you're all good with the health book or the
Oh,
health
I'm not. I
chapters
didn't
this
say
week?
I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, we're taking this week by week. So
It's just that
we're all set.
the new national standards that are Common Core aligned aren't here yet.
Okay.
So
Right.
it's just, we're putting them out there so people can be made aware, to be watchful, to know that when you get the notice saying we've changed, because right now they use the Michigan Model Health Standards. And you can get that at your school and
And
go look
parents
at
were
it. It's in
fighting
every
that
school.
years ago. My parents were involved with fighting to keep that out of the school districts back in the 1980s. But Michigan came in. Anything that comes out of the Midwest, not a good idea. Except for cheese curds and the Green Bay Packers. But seriously, there's a lot coming down the path, and we took Common Core in for English and math. There is nothing now to stop Common Core from coming in for health, for science, and for history.
Right.
And I think we'll be releasing those standards. I'll be putting those out there on the Ask the School Board page, a different standard each month, just so that people can start looking at them, start the discussion. We have to be prepared for what's coming down the pike.
And
We
that's
can't stick our heads in the sand anymore.
when the mayor looked at the camera repeatedly and said, this is not Common Core, when he was speaking about the Manchester academic standards, and we kept saying it is Common Core. And then Patrice went through and broke it all down to 88% overall Common Core, and in some grade levels, it's 100% Common Core. And conversations that I had with the school, with some of the board members, and they said, well, these are similar to the standards we used, and a lot of people were saying, but you've got the framework now in place that everything Common Core can slide right in. And no, it's not going to happen. And of course it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And now, we have the letter going back and forth from Virginia Berry to the mayor saying we have to do smarter balance. And now he just sends a letter back to her saying,
I want you to come meet with the school
I
board.
want you to meet with the school board. I mean, the only reason that, and this is why I really think that when Deb Langton was pushing to have a public forum, to have parents have their questions answered, this is why the mayor shut us down. Because the only answer to the golden question, which is, if you promised us the best standards in the state, why did you bind the teachers' hands and make them use Common Core state standards as the foundation? Why would you do that? The only answer to that question is because we had to prepare the children for smarter balance. That is the only answer to that question. Right. And that is the one that they won't answer. When they say, well, we left it up to the professionals. No, you didn't. You didn't tell the teachers they could develop whatever standards they wanted. I've had conversations with some of those teachers, and they said they would have been very comfortable taking the New Hampshire state standards and then changing them because they knew them inside out and backward. They knew what they were dealing with. They're still unpacking Common Core. They don't even know what they are to the full extent.
They took 2 days at the community college to unpack Common Core. How?
It's going to take all
years,
year
yeah.
as they go, lesson by lesson.
And you know what? You're right about that. Because when I looked at the curricular guides, I was looking for the middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Do you know they only have Unit 1, Quarter 1 up there right now?
Yeah, I thought that was what
So,
Glenn Willett was talking
because-
about. They don't exist.
Well, the K through 5, kindergarten is not a curricular guide. They just threw the standards up there. It doesn't look like a curriculum guide to me. 1st through 5th are the old curriculum guides that were used last year. 6th, 7th, and 8th are the new Unit 1, Quarter 1, utilizing the Manchester academic standards, which should be Manchester Common Core standards.
Are
'Cause I
they
think
broken
they're-
down at all, or are they still 6, 7, and 8 together?
No, 6th is separate from 7th, is separate from 8th, for English, anyways. You're thinking about the academic standards. These are different. These are the curriculum guides.
Okay.
So, and in high school, do you know what's up on the web for the high school curricular guides? A June 2008 revision. That's it. And it's amazing to see the books that were used. And it's grades 6 through 12 of ELA from June 2008. And all the nice traditional classic novels that we used to read are there. However, can I just tell you that I was...
So are you saying we spent $60,000 to go back to 2008?
Oh, let's see, I have to put this tactfully. Our 21st century district hasn't gotten into the 21st century yet because they haven't updated their website. Thank you very much. I'm so sorry. I can't refrain from that, folks. It's just too easy. They make themselves an easy target. So I went to Barnes & Noble before I came here today. While somebody was feasting with her husband, some of us went out to Barnes & Noble, and I said, look, these are the mentor texts for grades 1 through 5, and they're not the old-fashioned books that we used to read. Can you find me some of these books? And so I picked one per grade that I wanted them to find me, and lo and behold, Barnes & Noble doesn't stock any of these books. They don't have them in stock. They said a couple of them they could order. And I said, well, I can order off the internet. But these books aren't considered traditional or good enough or popular enough for Barnes & Noble.
Well, my son's second grade teacher read on Johnny Appleseed the other day, so I was encouraged.
That was nice. It's not on the list.
No, I know. But maybe some of the teachers are doing what they know is best
I hope so.
and not following
We
that.
did hear that the English language arts teachers were appalled at what was happening with the Common Core, taking out all this classic literature.
That was in the high school levels.
Okay, the high school, and they would not put up with it, and they just determined that they were going to have
And
some classics.
they were the only, they were the main changes of Common Core versus Manchester academic standards. Everything in the younger grades is just straight Common Core from either straight from the book or from Indiana Common Core state standards or Massachusetts state standards.
All of those exemplars that are having
Well,
critique all over the internet.
now, I'd
Right.
like to read to you, this is from the 6th grade ELA standards for Unit 1, Quarter 1. The essential questions. What influences an individual to belong to a community? What makes an individual or a group a member of a community? What is the role of change when leaving or entering a community? What happens to your identity when you leave one community for another? Can an individual belong to two communities? And then the unit performance task is write a letter either supporting or challenging a character's decision to leave or join a community. The suggested texts are The Case of Monkeys That Fell from Trees, or Zlata's Diary by Zlata Filipovic. But then it says information. Those are some texts. Then it's under informational texts. Immigration, Ellis Island, The Hunt for Alois Hanasek, www.whitehouse.gov issues/immigration/earn citizenship. Uganda, bill allowing dual citizenship passed. I looked at it. It was really boring. Immigration stories. And then, of course, under teacher resources, we have Universal Declaration of Human Rights from the United Nations, 16th of January, 2007.
Do you think these lessons are helpful
English.
for the refugees?
These are English language arts, helping to teach our children reading or writing. Because you see, in the UN Declaration of Human Rights, everyone has the right to education. Every education shall be free.
Wait, why are they reading the UN Declaration, not the U.S. Constitution or Declaration
Because
of Independence?
it's Common Core.
Yeah, it's a
Shouldn't that come
it's an
first?
agenda.
Article 25, everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. We have a right to clothing?
Well, it's socialism.
If you
I'm missing
work
my handout.
for it,
You know, I mean,
we all have
No, you
those
have a
rights
right
if we
to it.
work for them.
in a socialist society, a socialist state, these are the things that they provide for the population.
Now, I can understand if we're talking about this in a
Ta-
civics
through
class
taxes, yeah.
or a social studies class. This is in an English class.
It's all integrated, and
Yeah,
also
it
the
is.
sex ed is also integrated into every class. It's genre.
Last year, my son came home with a paper
Every
for
subject.
English, and it was about how to help with Habitat for Humanity and how you should get your parents involved with Habitat for Humanity. And I said, we volunteer enough of our time, thank you. We choose things that we volunteer to. It's a great organization, but, you can't come home
What
and
grade was that?
Third.
Third grade.
Yeah.
So it was the beginning of what we started to
They're trying to
see.
bring the agenda at home, to the home as well.
Right.
In seventh grade, our key ideas for Unit 1, Quarter 1, a family unit is not necessarily formed with a blood bond. Family can be made up of people we trust and love in a lifetime. Family is blood. I'm adopted. It makes me blood. It's the people you live with. It's your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters. That's the basic family unit, folks. It is not whoever we want.
Yeah, they're redefining the family.
They are, and this goes along, but you have to do that because that's why you have to have those health standards you were reading, because we have to redefine everything, right?
Everybody's included now.
Right.
no matter
Yeah,
who.
sorry. And then when we get into that, you're going to have texts like Getting Out of Gangs, Staying Out of Gangs, Gang Intervention and Resistance Strategies, published by the National Gang Center, January 2013.
I didn't even know we had National Gang Center.
Yes, and our kids will be reading from this because there's a web link right to it. Gangs, a growing problem in schools, published by the National Association of Social Workers. That's one of our suggested unit texts. The Outsiders, hey, I've heard of that, by S.E. Hinton, but they also want you to remember not just the book, but they have the movie too. Isn't that awesome?
With Pony Boy.
Yeah, so
like that movie.
they'll be doing that. And then they have an article on life in 1950s America, which I had to print off.
You remember that movie, don't you? With all the, it's an 80s movie. It's I think it's a John Ford movie, is it?
Outsiders? Wasn't, all the cute guys were in it.
Yeah, it's
All the cute guys were in it.
Stay
I know
Golden, Pony Boy.
Father knows best is what I know.
I love this, but this article on family life in the 1950s, under the topic Gender Bias and the Standard Family Setup.
I read that. You posted it on
I posted.
Facebook.
I'm just
I
beside
read it.
myself
That's why I
going,
was kind of late today.
They're going, And American
Reading it.
society in the 1950s was very conservative and materialistic in nature.
Yeah.
Really?
The 50s were married. I don't
They
think
were,
it-
they,
did
yes.
anybody have
They got
anything
washing
materialistic?
machines, they got,
Yeah, this sudden
refrigerators.
rise in marriages also seemed to have taken place due to the economic boom. And
They
then,
blamed everything on
A
the war.
sudden rise in marriages?
yes,
They
there was a
blamed
sudden
everything on
rise
the
in
war.
marriages.
World War II, they said, well, that's the reason why we all changed to a conservative family, because of World War II.
A standard structure of the American family comprised a breadwinner male, his wife who did household chores and looked after the children, and the children. This supposed return of women to domesticity after the war seems to have been a consequence of gender bias that prevailed in the social order as families adopted the patriarchal lifestyle.
Now, that was grade what?
This is grade 7.
And they're reading...
They're teenagers. Their hormones are blaring.
And I was looking at the vocabulary, okay, and some of the words I couldn't hardly pronounce. And, I mean, I knew what they all meant, but I'm an adult, okay?
Right.
But I was thinking from a 7th grade, they're going to have to look up 50% of those words.
They just won't read it.
But
They'll skim it. They'll skim
we
it.
didn't think about gender. I don't think my father was thinking about gender bias. And patriarchal families, I think he went to work to provide for his wife and children.
Did they not see Little House on the Prairie? Because this happened way before the 1950s. This
Right.
is how family structure was
I mean,
all through
I don't get
history.
it. So this is part of our 7th grade curriculum in Unit 1, Section 1. And then we get to 8th grade, and they're doing instinct versus intellect. What role does instinct versus intellect play in the human condition?
Of course,
How does word choice and/or character influence theme? And of course, we're reading Flowers for Algernon. Okay, that came back in the 70s. I read Flowers for Algernon. It's a deeply disturbing story.
I thought you were going to say Flowers in the Attic, which is just...
No, shh,
pretty
that
bad.
could be next. They better not, but it could be next.
I never read it, but
I did.
I had friends that did.
I did. It was when
There's
you
a
went
TV
to
series now. Do you know that?
No.
There's a TV series, Flowers in the Attic. I don't know how they
that was
put that on
that was in the
TV, but-
vibe. That was when you went down to the library to do research with your friends, and everybody found the books with the dirty words in them. Yeah, I found Flowers in the Attic.
I was reading Judy Blume.
But yes, the Flowers for Algernon or The Call of the Wild. I like The Call of the Wild.
Yeah, that's classic.
But some of them will pick Flowers for Algernon, and they're going to be doing, I like this, teacher resources, grammar text, chapter 4, page 48. People, for a whole quarter of work, you better be doing more than one page of grammar. It's just pathetic.
It really does.
But
One page.
it says, chapter 4, page 48. I'm not making it up. It's on the curriculum guide, folks. Go to the 8th grade curriculum, ELA, Unit 1, Quarter 1, page 4. That's where it says grammar, text, chapter 4, page 48. There's only one page.
Yeah, there's a lot of that where they only read 1 or 2 pages or a chapter in a book. They don't read the whole book. Like they probably won't read the whole Call of the Wild.
And
They'll
that
just
was-
read an excerpt. from
And
it.
that was the problem that
Look at the
with the
movie.
Common Core state standards at the high school level, they took pieces of Mark Twain's writings. They took a couple of pages to analyze it against something else, and they weren't reading the full books.
How
and
can
that's
you get a context and enjoy reading a classic book if you can't read the whole thing?
you can't, especially something like Mark Twain, where there's so many personalities that are interwoven in this. You know, it's
There's
historical.
a lot of thought and a lot of inspiration going on there.
Well, I don't know. I love the fact that at Founders they're telling the children to read 20 books outside of class. I love the fact that I can hand him a book and let him go with it. I like that he doesn't have so much homework that he actually has time to read at home. When they get older, they don't always have that time. I know my daughter in high school has very little time to read outside of her classwork and her music stuff. But
In Manchester, they're doing the Million Word Challenge again. So every child is expected to read 20 minutes at home each night. And they break it down into what kind of books, per grade level. And we even struggle with that sometimes. We'll make up for it on different days, but
Right.
we're not able to always do the 20 minutes. Sometimes bedtime can be difficult when they're still little, and you lose the reading time with the disciplining time, especially getting back into the hang of things for school.
The schedule.
It can be difficult to get them settled down and in bed and do the right things. So, and that's when we usually would read. So
Right.
there are other days where things go smoothly and we make up the time a little bit. So I'm hoping that they give us a little leeway with that. And as long as you do the 100 minutes a week, is what we're shooting for.
Oh, really? Okay.
Can we talk about the South Side class size?
Yes.
Do you know where that's going? We got a couple minutes left.
Well, I know that a letter went home. You posted the letter that went home September 11th.
I know Arthur Beaudry has been really trying to get parents involved in this, to let them know that they had 48 class sizes above the state standard
30 students.
size of, yes, of 30 students. And they sent out a letter that, I actually grabbed it from Johnny Yvard and I put it on the website, that said that they were going to, they had an influx of students signing up the end of August, beginning of
41.
September. And so the numbers don't make sense to me. So if there's only 40 kids that showed up that they weren't expecting, that wouldn't put 48
Right,
classrooms
and,
over
and,
the size.
and that letter shows that it's less. It's only like 20-something classes that are over 30.
He went into every classroom and counted.
Well,
You
but
did.
but things have changed already in a week. I'm sure things have changed.
So they're going to also delete the names of the students that haven't shown up for 10 days. If you're not there for 10 days, you're considered a dropout, apparently. Maybe they moved out of the district, or there's a reason they're not attending
Didn't
that
notify.
school. They could have gone to another school and just, didn't take their name off the roster when they changed schools. So they're going to be looking at that. They seem to think, the administration seems to think that that's going to solve the problem. I guess we'll have to wait and see if that does.
Another week or so.
Yeah.
They promise at the end of the month or so, at
Well,
the
they
beginning
said
of
they had-
October, they're going to be all straightened out.
They can't do anything until September 17th because they have to give that 10 days and make sure the kids haven't shown up. And then they can start looking at it and moving around. Look, there were classes with 30, 31, and 32. That's manageable. It seems to me, let them get the numbers and let them work at it. I think that the administrators probably can do the job. They can probably work it out. I don't think it's
So-
something to be, this is not a district-wide problem. It's a Southside problem,
Yeah.
really.
Let's-
Well, what should we do,
Keep
girls?
that.
Should we call it a day today and maybe come on in a month or so and update us in a month?
I think that's probably good. We'll see what's
happening in,
I
in a
just
month.
I just want to reiterate that I love their new principal at Highlands. Mrs. Matthews is great, and she's really making an effort to reach out to the parents and the community. And we had a conversation the other day. She stopped me in the hall to talk to me about the safety of the